Hi, I'm Dr. Muli Amaye and I'm the coordinator of the MFA in Creative Writing at the UWI St. Augustine campus. The MFA is for writers who want to carve out time to concentrate on their craft. It is designed to give writers the tools that they need to grow their writing. The first year of the MFA offers courses that encourage deep thought about the processes of writing, reading, and research for writing purposes, and offers a solid base for the student to complete their manuscript and reflective thesis for examination. The following MFA students are going to share their work in progress, and we thank Bocas Lit Fest for this opportunity. 2020 is a new experience for us all, and keeping our strong bonds with the writing and literary community is more important than ever. Please enjoy the following readings from Nadja Nabbe, Stacy Lela, Vanessa Salazar, Rakhee Kissoon, and Faith Jafferali.
Hey there everyone! My name is Nadja Nabbe and I'm a student on the MFA program at UWI. Today, I will be reading for you my short story titled Traveling, and I do hope that you enjoy it. The feeling of a woman sits near the feet, counting 10 toes. She whistles along the membrane of calves, knees, and thighs, moving over a flattened mound, small bumps of breasts, a neck, and then to the mouth, leaning in for a kiss goodbye. Outside, away from where the body lies tensed and cold, the magenta sky hemorrhages into a twilight-stained maroon. Blackbirds fly released, having no choice but to abandon all sense of grit, reason, and direction. Their wings are stretched rigid and stiff. They drift in sublime surrender to the indomitable winter, panting on the breath of wind. From where she sits on the cold, thin layer of dull cloth separating the body from the dusty earth in which it came, she, the woman, the feeling, watches. The avian's appearance is a signal. It is time for her to leave. When she gets up, the body shivers in the cold. Be quiet now. Silence. Relax. The tongue unfurls off the ridge of the gum and comes to lie flat. The head droops. Shoulders unpinned like a jacket slid off the hanger. It listens, her body, because it knows she will return. She always does. If it will receive her once more is yet to be known. This is why, when she reaches the edge of the cover, she turns for one final look. On nights like this, one can't be sure. One never knows if one will be returning to the same body, or if when returned, the body will still be receptive. She pays no attention to the man beside the body. She takes no care to wonder if he is hungry or wanting rest in hers. She knows by the sound of his snoring, she has already fulfilled her part. He, this man, her husband, is appeased, and now he has turned off the world and returned to his natural state, selfish living. He is much to thank for this what she is doing, but of course that would be giving him too much. Instead, she focuses on her own appetite for thrill and adventure. It was this that brought her to it in the first place, and it is this that sees her through, sustains her in her travels. She never thinks of him when she is gone, not one bit. She never wonders of who he is dreaming of that night. Instead, she focuses solely on herself, on living, even if that living means carrying on like the dead, even if it means abandoning what was God-given. In this, her true form, she no longer belongs to him. She belongs to no one. Sometimes not even herself. She loves that. Freed of duties that bind her humanity, she is released. She is no longer beloved wife or mother or daughter or even friend. She is boundless, eternal spirit. Primal, existing as she was before the origin of sin. Before God had blown his breath on clay and made it come alive. She is like God himself. And who can own God? Who can say to God that he must stay quiet and hidden, and that he must listen as commanded? No one dares contest God. So in this form, she is as she was always meant to be, freed. She steps into the glow of the moonlight and she is off crossing sea and space and time, traveling, expanding. She is light from the heaven, she is light on the sea. She is sound. She is the hum of an home, the primordial sound of the universe. She is the chant of a prayer, the whisper of hope. Tonight she is reaching far beyond anywhere she has ever dared venture before. Perhaps it is because she's feeling a bit risky. Perhaps the comfortableness of the state is setting in finally. She just finds herself wanting a new kind of trip tonight, something strange and alluring. She looks up at the sky. Only once has she gone skyward. She floated then among the stars, but when she looked down on earth, she realized how much of it was unknown to her. She figured then she was better off knowing where she came from before she could chart a new ongoing. She started first in Europe, but she's done trekking through there. Once, she met a man with whom she fell in love, another traveler like her. She kissed him under the Leaning Tower, made love to him in the great ruins, atop Spanish-style roofs at sunrise, and once under the Eiffel Tower. That was after he told her he would be traveling to the stars for good, that his time on the earth was over. She had to concede it was the end. She had to accept and let him go. The next morning when she woke up in her body, and after she'd seen her husband off for work, she cried endless. So now she's done with the business of Europe. She wishes to see other worlds, so she's trotting, if one could call it trotting, the globe, for a new spot to have new adventures in. She is thinking of Nigeria or the Congo, somewhere in Africa. So she travels westward to this new adventure. In the darkness of the night she comes upon the tall striding god. He crosses the plain, colourful, walking on a pair of sticks, a long flowing gown, a pair of wings, cloth rippling, flowing. Colour and glitter rises out of his back and hangs down in sequins. He moves with grace and elegance and ease, his large body guiding as she, the feeling the woman, stalks on his heels, careful to not be noticed or seen. She moves as he crosses into the Atlantic, passing land masses and large structures at sea, boats, waves, crossing until he comes upon a shore lined with hills that roll one into the other and enters the place. She has never come to such a place like this. Immediately it is different to her, in a good way. In the way that you never knew you needed something before, but you find it when the time is ready, in a healing kind of way. She creeps through acres of unfamiliar leaves, through a lush green thicket, following tall striding god as he dances the wind and comes upon the sound, the fire, the whistling. In this world, men and women are dragons, bats, and devils, blue painted and black oiled. They run through the streets screaming, cackling, red drool dripping into a bucket full of dollar bills. She is quickly disturbed. She tries to run, but the crowd is thick around her, wailing, carrying on, grinding against each other. The scream and the whistle is an echo thick in the night. In the grit and heat, in the orange glow of the lamppost, she is looking for a way out. She is cursing herself. Why did she come to this place? Why did she follow? Why couldn't she be content with somewhere closer to home, somewhere safe? She tries to flee, wants to go back to the body, but they block her, and she is quickly lost in the rhythm and the energy and the sound of the whistling and the wailing and the painted fiend who stands before her seeming to stare straight into her soul. She runs again, tries to signal tall striding God, but he is lost in a rapture as he holds one leg in his hand and waves and waylays all over the place. Bouncing around, he dips and squats, and she, the woman the feeling, is below, praying that he will see her and lift her away from this madness. She turns, and then she spots her, the woman, the masquerader, and she is stunned at the thin, feeble frame of the woman who looks exactly like her, though not at all, at the curls bouncing, and at the woman whom she has felt she has seen every day in her reflection. How is it possible? Had her own body picked up and decided it was coming too? Had it gotten fed up of being left behind, decided it had to live as well, and not lay there abandoned and locked off from the rest of the world? She ventures over to her, the woman, the masquerader, and she drifts about her, inspecting the hair and the face and the frame, and she dares to do something she has never done before. She touches the woman. Her spirit is on flesh and sweat, skin encircling before she enters, two spirits, one body, moving together, she inside the woman and the woman inside of herself, and she feels the energy and the hips rolling, becoming one with this carnival woman, Juve woman, Jamit woman, trotting down the road in her short pants, walking the road with a neck full of powder, breast and bottom full of every color under the sun, cooling on her skin along with mud and clay and chocolate and powder and film and fantasy. Together they are tall spirit dancing on stilts. Woman in a field lighting a stick of cane, screaming resistance on an early morning. In all the world she has been, there is no pain like the one felt in the body, but there is also no pleasure like it. And she, who is one with the woman, sprawling all over a man, all over the ground, all over sunrise and paint and sound and the chant of iron and the clatter-clatang and the desk and drum, in all this she has come to find herself and be freed finally, if only for this one moment, if only for this happening, if only for this time. Soon again she will find herself returned at her doorstep, at her own body transformed and changed. But for now, for all that exists now in her, is this place, and in this she is at home in the unmaking of herself. So that's my story, and you be good, you continue to be safe out there, and many blessings. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Stacy, creative writing MFA student at the UB. The following is an excerpt from my manuscript for the program. Tutul Bay by Stacy Lela. The longest rope have an end, Grandma Eunice used to tell me. And sometimes that end is not one you will wish on your worst enemy. Grandma Eunice had married an Indian man from Arapo. Kali was his name. He did buy land from Petra de Coto down in the valley and built up a nice concrete house with inside toilet for she. Grandma Eunice said that long time, Degwa youths used to come down and bathe in the river. Rachel too used to go skinny dipping in the 6-foot deep pool back in the day. Every time she tell me, Grandma Eunice used to frown up she face and remind her about the time she smoked weed and Kali reached down by the river with a broad leather belt. He blazed, she asked, twice. First, when he found she naked on the bank with Rambo, and the second time in front of the Decoto residence as an announcement that no only child not ruling he house. Soon, everything that happened down on that side was illegal. Fields of weed were planted, cocaine-laced joints were rolled by the thousands, man toting AKs and bazookas to show off, and just like that, the place, once a retreat, became a meeting point for the wayward and criminals. Rambo too would get tired of the gang thing. He died from multiple gunshot wounds on the very riverbank where he and Rachel used to meet. I almost sure that that was where I was conceived. They say he wasn't always a bad boy. He could have turned out good, he could have turned out bad. But one day a strong breeze blew. Rachel did just start to show belly. Kali beat she black as white, hoping that she lose the baby, but she didn't. Grandma Eunice band up her wounds like she used to do her own and take care of her until the baby come. They named me Linda, and Kali get a third generation of Jones woman to torment. Rachel eventually moved out to live with her new man and leave me there with Grandma Eunice. The night the bacchanal start, I did sit down on my bed with my big white hat in hand, waiting for Ravi. Rachel gave me that hat when Kali died. It was a strong hat made by a mestiza as a gift to Grandma Eunice's great-grandmother, an heirloom handed down from mother to daughter, not because it was precious or important, but because it outlasted lifetimes. Rachel didn't care for the hat. She said she looked like a fool in it, so she gave it to me to play with. But even as a girl, I find it was classy. When I hear the whistle blow, I went and unlatched the door. I ran back to the bed, put on the hat, and strike a pose. As Ravi come, he knocked off the hat and laughed Ravi is Brahmin, and although he family high color, they broken to teeth. I never think he would have liked me. When he first kissed me, I come alive. It had buried something in my head, a feeling that I would have never feel again in life. The smell of cigarette smoke mixed with faded cologne that he would have put on since morning grabbed my attention when he picked up the hat off the ground. We were still laughing. He had eyes that die for, bottomless jade pupils surrounded by rich brown earth. I pulled on his sharp chin and his beard suited like black nylon. In my usual routine, I buried my tongue between his lips, looking once again to see if I would taste love. All I found was the residue of punching. He flung the hat on the bed. "You and this blasted hat," he said. "Don't play like you don't like it now. You didn't tell me I look like a painting of a free black woman when I wear it." I put back on the hat and take a picture. "That was Mama Guy," he said, and then knock it off again. We couldn't done laugh. "Where you pass?" I asked. "Where else? Through the forest." "You don't afraid?" "For what, girl? The darkness?" He grinned. "And to besides, I will do anything to see you, even cough down the devil that living in the silk cotton tree. You could do that for me?" And it's then I remember. What about Seema? You could do that for she too? In truth, I was with Ravi before Seema, but I tell him I wanted to meet his family, and he didn't want that. Nevertheless, he still come around on and off. A year later, he married Seema. He said his mother and father arranged it because she was Hindu like him, and her family had money. I remember his exact words. "How I could marry you? You is Christian, and to besides, I would divorce Seema in 2 years, and we could take she money and go somewhere." That was 7 years ago. As time passed, the story changed. The last reason he couldn't leave was that Seema wasn't well. She was manic depressive. Grandma Eunice said that he had a jumbie on him that would send woman mad. I followed bad up because I'm not mad. You see, everybody does need somebody, even if they're just plain wicked. Ravi was there for me, like the peg Callie used to walk after the doctors cut off his gangrene foot right before he died. I watched my mother and grandmother take care of the old rumbelly Rawan who beat all of we like snake. He didn't use the peg for long. He stopped when he killed Kitty in the doorway. He cussed everything he rested his eyes on, including me. He tell me I black and ugly like Eunice. And the two of them pick him up and put him on the couch, and neither of them watch me twice. Ever so often, Ravi would slip away from me, and like I can't catch myself, so I used to beg him to come back. I was crippled like Callie, and he was my peg. The love, the sweetness, the sugar was eating me and poisoning me same way. All how I wanted to leave, I couldn't. As Grandma Eunice used to say, leave your luxury for latrin. So she stayed despite the licks, the cuss, the torment, the name calling, the hurt, the shame, the wickedness. Same way Rachel stayed because it was he who minded we and was the right thing to do. Well, I stayed because Ravi was all I had. I stayed because Grandma Eunice used to say that God does bless selflessness. I had come to hate Rachel and Grandma Eunice. We used to fall out stink for everything and used to escalate to massive cuss-outs that could be heard as far as the big bridge. Like the time Rachel ups and tell me just so that I should call her mommy. She never raised me. I tell she the only mother she was a mother so-and-so. I know I shouldn't have said that, but I was vexed for too long to say sorry. For Carly Wake, Rachel tell everybody that taking care of she father when he died was why God healed her, and she was grateful. I get up and spit on the ground. I never do nothing so in my life, but I had every right. You calling God name and shut up with man, I say. She make an announcement. Oh, she will never get married because when she was 14, Grandma Eunice sweep she foot with a broom. Right after that, she meet Rambo, and as they plan to get married, he come and dead. Then she was with Bobby, and they went around for 5 years. And the day she talked about jumping the broom, she never seen him again. To stress and the never, she screwed her thumb right in the dimple. She and Wade did reach as far as to buy suit and gown. And then he tell her, just so, I don't think this will work out, and he leave. I wanted to say she blighted, but the people who were there shaking their head and remembering these stories. Oh, that sealed she fate, but it don't have to be so for me. I could get married and settle down and leave people man alone. After my own mother embarrassed me so, the whole Asangre they go and take it upon themselves to show me bad face. On the day of the funeral, I cried like a baby with colic, not because Carly gone, but because although he was gone, I still feel the bitterness in my stomach leaking into my mouth. I wanted to spit again, and when I hold it back, I vomit. All the dashing bush that they forced me to eat the morning to keep me up splatter on my shoes. Grandma Eunice had come to hold me. I feel a contentment in her body while she holding me. Like she thought I'm grieving for him. Or maybe she thought I forgive him. In the funeral, she will look to tell me it's strange how we just come to love the people who hurt us. I pull away from she and fall in the muddy grave, break my ankle and dirty up my nice black dress. That caused another cuss out, but long after, I had let it boil. And that is when things used to get worse. I used to feel this way when Seema come up in conversation, like we was on top of this fire, bubbling like Carl. Every single time I promised myself I would leave. That night, I did say to myself right before he opened the door, but I'm not sure when it slipped my mind. Oh gosh, things going nice. Why you have to go and bring she up for? Ravi sighed. Sitting on the bed, he rubbed his bushy eyebrows between his thumb and his middle finger, and then leaned over into the weight of his head. It always on my mind. You keep saying that you would leave, but it's 7 years now, Ravi, and you still with the woman. It's not as simple with husband and wife thing, he struggled to explain. She wasn't wife when I meet you. I breathed a big breath through my mouth. Why you don't just let me go? I told you, you could go if you want. He lunged him out like we was in standard one and he didn't want to play with me again. I wanted to go, but Mother Shibat said I too will be. The old woman concluded from what she saw that my lover hadn't worked over on me, but it was I who stupid over him. To be honest, I will not fight for her, he tell me. We have a lot of attachments, but that keep us together, but the love gone now. Long time. I wish it could be easier for us, but soon things will change. I did start to believe him, But when he talk about change, I know he lying through his teeth. Change? I asked him. Yeah, I could tell she. But what he said didn't ease my spirit because it's like I living in limbo. I always hiding how I feel. I just even hide what I thinking because I afraid people read my face. Or maybe I will do something to give it away. Something that might make the man so upset with me, he would tell me for the millionth time that he can mash up the thing if I make it bad for him. No, it didn't make me feel better at all. I can't take it no more. All you just change is your clothes. Is then the idea come. And I wonder why I didn't think about it a long time. You know what? I will tell she. He busts out laughing. You don't have the belly. Oh, so you feel, you think as the same little girl you meet how much years ago. I was certain now. He used to tell me when I shouldn't do something. Never in his life he tell me I can't do something. You know what? I will tell her. He pulled back his head like a drake and watched to see if it was me. But he's smart. He take my hands and kiss them like I see the picture of a free black woman. You know, Linda is the conquistador's name for beautiful. He could have tried what I didn't make up my mind. And I frightened. And I don't know why I'm so frightened. That's strange, eh? What is that? How we just come to love the people who hurt us. I wasn't saying that Grandma Eunice right, but I wonder if it's true and why I frightened so. I studied if I'd like the bad treatment more than the man who treated me bad. I don't think it's a bad thing. I didn't even know what he's talking about. I watched him fix in the eyes that held me captive. Grandma Eunice says lost, but what she know? That night before he peeled himself out of my arms to find his wife's house, I had a dream. It had ride my chest like a mango, so I ended up telling Grandma Eunice, but it caused a falling out again. That was the last time we would talk face to face. In the dream, I was in a white dress walking up the church aisle. I watched to see if Robbie was waiting, if it was Robbie waiting for me. And I feel so good that he finally chose me. When I reach up, I get vexed because I noticed that I was sitting in the front row crying. Somehow when I saw me sitting, I started to see from that point of view. I raised up my head and stopped crying because he said it is me he married him. I smiled. But when he lifted up the veil, I saw it was great Auntie Bertha who died a long time now. The funny thing is, I never knew her. I just saw her in pictures. Ravi watching me and nodding for my approval because he's certain this was me he just married. I tell him that it's not me, that is a spirit. He smiles and says, yes, it's okay. And they walk out the church, and I wonder how a wedding ceremony could be this hour of the evening, as the sun looking eye level across the savannah outside, so that I have to put up my hand to block the glare. At that point, I get frightened, because I remember sometimes I can't trust what Robbie's saying. And that was when I wake. My foot was lancing. Rain was going to fall. The place was dead silent. A crapper wouldn't dare croak. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, tying the lacing of his shoes. A dirty, wet scent crawled up the end of the skirting of the bed. He glanced sideways and made to leave. When he raised off, the mattress felt hollow. As the door cracked, an icy cold breeze blew in and strangled the warm air. Then he disappeared in the shadows of the tall, stinking two trees in a sepia moonset.
Hello Bocas, thank you for allowing me to read some of my work. My name is Vanessa Salazar and I am an MFA in Creative Writing student at UWI St. Augustine. I will be reading from my first novel, Selima and the Merfolk, which is a young adult novel about a young girl who discovers that there are mermaids living at the end of Las Cuevas Bay in a river called the Ferry. I'm going to be reading from chapter 7, titled I See Your True Colors. The next morning, Selima awoke with a smile on her face. She had dreamt of Amras. In the dream, they were in an underwater park. They shared an overly topped ice cream sundae, and at the bottom of the sundae was a chocolate box, and in the box was a pearl engagement ring. She didn't wait for him to ask. She shouted, "Yes." Selima savored the details of her dream. She tried to go back to sleep in spite of the sun's intrusive rays. She squashed a pillow over her head and turned her back to the window. The change of direction put her in view of a mirror. Confronted with her giddy face, her guilt would not allow her the peace to sleep. She could not pretend that Amras was not Drea's mate, or that Drea hadn't saved her life. It was impossible not to be captivated by Amras's infectious nature, but like her friendship with the merfolk, the secret of her blossoming feelings was one she intended to keep. The morning had an essence of newness, as if so much was about to change. As usual, Selima and Missy left for the ferry. This time she took a brush for Drea and a lighter for Amras. Selima passed Dave in the village. He had materials to finish Annie's office in his truck because the contractor had abandoned the job. He decided to finish it himself with the help of two friends, one of whom was Anthony's uncle. "Where would I put Missy when you're finished?" she asked. "Don't worry, we'll find a place for her," he assured. He drove off and Selima continued on her way. Only Amras was at the river. Drea was with her mother, making engagement arrangements. Selima gave him his gift and showed him what she brought for Drea. He was amazed at what fire was and what it could do. Throughout the conversation, he kept his finger on the fuel lever. Mesmerized, Ambrose gazed at the flames and ran his webbed fingers through it, even though Selima warned that he could be burned. With a soft kiss on the cheek, he thanked her for the gift and promised that Drea would love her gift just as much. Eventually, Selima took the lighter from him. She encouraged him to share more about his life, and she did as well. Ambrose didn't know what school was and was unimpressed to learn that most of a human's youth was dedicated to education. In his culture, their focus was on family and community. For the same length of time that humans spent in schools, they spent bonding with their families and being groomed to be assets to their communities. One thing they did have in common was a concept of marriage. Only to believe in true love was not a popular notion of humans anymore, whereas it was expected from merfolk. Merfolk married for life, no reconsiderations. When Selima said her parents chose to be separated, that it was not because of death, Ambrose could not grasp that reasoning behind their decision. She did not tell him about her mother's drinking, not that it would have made any difference to him. He was also stunned to learn that she was an only child. It was not unusual for merfolk to have upwards of 20 offsprings. He himself was from a family of 23, separated by a few months. She could not think of a way to ask him how mermaids had babies without blushing, so she left that question out. She asked about the river, where it led to, and why they didn't live in the sea. He said that after merfolk and humans were alienated, a mermaid fell in love with a human. She would meet him by the same rock that separated the two beaches on Las Grivas Bay. When the Sea King found out, he banished her from the sea. With the force of a storm, he pushed her into the same river where Selima met Drea and Ambrose. So what happened to the man she was in love with? Selima asked. He found her and lived with her in the river. How did he live with her? There are so many stories, I don't know which one is true. Some say he grew gills, some say she grew legs. My great-grandfather said their love found a way to keep them together, and that's good enough for me. So you believe? Selima asked. Sure, I believe. Ambrose smiled coyly as he told his stories. He was confident and proud of who he was without being haughty. He was unlike anyone she had ever met, and not just because of his tail. He treated her as though everything of what she was ashamed of was of no negative significance to him. He was yet to mention her abnormal eyes, though with his eyes she understood why it would not be something that would be odd to him. Ambrose released himself from Selima's gaze. He swam to the other end of the river and gave Missy some attention. Why aren't you in the river? He asked Selima. Are you afraid of me? No, I can't swim. Didn't Drea tell you she found me drowning? Drea exaggerates. I didn't quite believe her. Well, she didn't this time. I really can't swim. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm almost 16. When will you be 16? Tomorrow, actually. Well, let's get started. I'll teach you. So I'm going to stop here because this goes on to a whole different part of the story. A lot of action, a lot of romance, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of failure, and a lot of victories too as well. So thank you everyone for listening to my story, and good luck to everyone else. Bye.
Hello, good day. My name is Rakhee Kissoon. I am an MFA student with the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus, and today it is my pleasure to share with you part of a manuscript I am currently working on. True to his word, Raja started my training the very next day. But did he teach me anything about magic? No. Did he, however, put me through rigorous physical torture that had absolutely nothing to do with magic? Yes, that was exactly what he did. I didn't care how handsome he was or how good he cooked. I hated him almost as much as I hated burpees. If you are lucky enough to not know what a burpee is, let me enlighten you. It is a form of exercise that is torture, that involves going straight from a push-up to jumping on your feet. You know what the worst part was? His good chair. That's right. While he was working my butt off, he had the audacity to be chirpy with a seemingly endless supply of corny jokes. Hey Mia, what did the sea say to the shore? At which point I would usually roll my eyes. Nothing, it just waved. At which point he would start chuckling at his own joke. I scowled as he approached. I was sitting on the hard ground in the dark. Daylight had not touched this planet since we arrived, and Raja had taken down a few of the lights he had created on that first day. He said my dependence on the light was limiting me. I noticed a gold-wrapped chocolate in his palm. Damn it, I could smell the layers of hazelnut chocolate. I licked my lips, already anticipating the tiny crunch of the wafer and not in the middle. It didn't take Raja long to realize that my weakness was food. As such, he loved dangling treats in front of me. I had learned that the nicer the treat, the harder the workout. And if I complained even once during his beast routine, the bastard would eat the treat in front of me. He never shouted, he never cursed, but I think his brand of cruelty was worse. How's the pain? He smirked. I would have given him a deserving reply if he weren't holding that chocolate in his hand. I ached all over. Great! I raised my chin. Couldn't be better, and I smiled brightly. He laughed. You're lying. Then why bother asking? I scowled harder, trying to visualize a big rock over his head. Nothing happened, of course. That Chi Maya thing was not working for me. My head hurt, my abs hurt, even my butt hurt. I hadn't known there were muscles in some of the places that hurt. I don't want you to lie about the pain, Mia. I want you to control it. There's a difference. This time I looked around for an actual boulder to throw at him, and I swear if I wasn't hurting so much, I would have walked a few feet to get it. Tell yourself there is no pain, he said. It's all in your mind, he said. He chuckled and peeled off the gold wrapping. In times like this, heightened senses were more cursed than his strength, because I could smell the chocolate, the hazelnut, and without my permission, my scent receptors taunted my taste buds about all the joy they were being denied. If I was irritable before, I was worse now. He shoved the whole thing in his mouth, chewing loudly. Then, as if he only just remembered I was sitting there, you're right. He faked wide-eyed ignorance. Oh, the deviant said. Did you want one? I narrowed my eyes at him, refusing to answer, knowing exactly how this would go. Not surprisingly, a whole sexy box of chocolates appeared, and he plucked another one out, peeling the paper off slowly, cruelly. I waited, anticipating a harder task this time. Mouth full, he stood up. You know what your problem is, Mia? You. I bit the inside of my cheek to keep myself from answering because he would just add difficulty to my next routine. Discipline and all that, he claimed. I snorted, mentally. Discipline was the word he used to disguise cruelty. Your problem is that you still think you're human. Obviously, we were now in the lecture part of the day's lesson, so I didn't interrupt. He had told me this so many times I could regurgitate his own words back to him, point form, alphabetically. I bet I could even produce a neat debate essay on it. I swallowed a sigh. It wasn't as though I wasn't trying. I tried. I told my conscious, my subconscious, and my unconscious that I was not human anymore, that I was now a keeper, but they weren't listening to me. Zev wants me not to be soft with you, he shrugged. I think maybe I've been too easy. He had to be kidding me. This was easy? Burpees, push-ups, jumping push-ups, running, crocodile crawls, climbing, punching, kicking, headstands, half bows, full bows, repeat, repeat, repeat. Well, to hell with him and Zev. I had gotten very adept at pushing away that awkward memory of Zev. But the dreams were torture, embarrassingly so. Raja said we were in another galaxy. Then why was I still dreaming him? Why did I see him when I closed my eyes? I swear, I didn't think about him all day. I killed the thoughts before they took form. Then why was my subconscious torturing me nightly? I should have never kissed him. That kiss was a bad idea. It changed everything. So today you're going to fight me, Raja said. That got my attention. I blinked up at him. I can't fight you. The very idea was ludicrous. Raja wasn't as tall as Zev, but he was just as muscular. His arms strained through the sleeves of his t-shirt, and I could see the outline of a well-defined chest. Don't even get me started on his calves. Honestly, I never knew a man's calves could be sexy. He could literally kill me with little effort. You're going to fight me, he directed, and try to take this chocolate from my hand. I stood up and faced him, jutting my chin out. No thanks, I don't want the chocolate that much, he sighed. And suddenly, the chocolate was in my hand. Fine, he said. Then I'll fight you for it. What the hell? I held out my hand to give it back to him, but he was already delivering a sweeping kick, tripping me to the ground. He plucked the chocolate from my hand, shaking his head and making no effort to hide a grin. The audacity! Like taking candy from a baby, he smirked, exceedingly pleased with his maneuver. I stood up, dusting myself off, wincing at the pain. My body wouldn't bruise. Zev had been right about the healing. I smelled the doubles before I saw it on my hand. My gaze riveted to him, alarm alerting my reflexes to buck up next time. Ooh, Raja cooed, grinning. Doubles. As if he didn't just put it there. He fisted his hands into fight position and approached me. Damn it. Here, you can have it. I had 1 week of training. 1 measly week, and while I would like to claim I miraculously gained mad fighting skills in that time, unfortunately, all I had gained for my effort was vicious physical pain. Of course, Raja didn't accept the doubles. No, he seemed to be having too much of a grand time with this new game. He jabbed. I ducked, scowling darkly at him. I am giving it to you. I'm a warrior. Raja donned a mask of completely faked horror. I need to hunt for my food. By fighting a woman? How brave he must be, O great warrior. I didn't even realize I had fisted my hands in response until I deflected a punch and jabbed back. His smile brightened. My heart pounded, anxiety returning at the thought of fighting him, which apparently my body decided to do without my permission. I faltered in my defense and collected a right hook to my jaw. Ouch! But I'm not fighting a woman. I'm fighting a warrior, a keeper. I narrowed my eyes at him. If he was going to force me to do this, then I'll be damned if I didn't get at least a few shots in.
Hi, my name is Faith and I am from the MFA program at UE. I'll be reading a short story entitled Scraps. Have you ever seen Mr. Coleman leave his assigned post for a prolonged period of time? I leaned back on the plastic chair, crossing my arms in an attempt to glance at the time on my watch. This was the 6th time this policeman asked me the same thing in a different way. I must look like a fool if they thought I wouldn't pick up on it. I huffed sharply, shifted my position again, trying to display agitation. Only last week Bossman warned me about signing in late for my shift, but yet these men won't let me leave. I wonder if they informed him that they would be questioning me. Bossman ass must be cutting nail right now. A murder and a missing person all on his scrapyard. I watched the officer cut eye before answering. No, and I will tell you again. I never saw him leave his post in the 5 years that I worked the shift system with him. I used to see him sitting in a chair over by the front gate of the yard if he wasn't stationed by the desk. He was always uptight, rigid. I didn't understand why he took the job so seriously. He wasn't a small talk kind of person to me. Scraps was a different kind of man. He used to walk into the building 15 minutes earlier than necessary to relieve me from my post. He would come, wait for me to remove my things from the desk, and rest his neatly in the corner. I used to observe the man, only a curt good night, before standing off to the side as he waited for me to leave. It didn't feel rude or made me feel uncomfortable. It wasn't anything like that. So I just thought it was an age difference thing. Everyone on the scrapyard heard about the incident that happened last night, but no one had any real information about what happened. I wasn't surprised he came to find me. I was the last person to see Scraps last night when he came in for his shift. It was only a matter of a time. Officer Burt listened to me, but I knew he didn't believe what I was telling him. He jotted some more notes in that small piece of paper that looked like he ripped it quickly out of the book before coming to speak with me. That was only tactic. They could never be so carefree in an investigation. They must feel I never watched CSI. Bert was nothing like his partner who, during my interrogation, was studying even the specks of dust that seemed misplaced in my room. The man didn't even try to hide the fact that he wanted answers. I offered them some information, but I didn't know. Sometimes when I forget something, I would have to circle back, and he would be standing up there, no radio on, no newspapers, just him sitting there by that desk. I didn't understand why. I couldn't say too much. I didn't want to incriminate myself about the murder investigation. So I told him he was a diligent worker from what I ever noticed, and I'm sure Bossman could attest to that. Officer Burt folded the paper and placed it into his pocket. I was surprised he found space with the amount of pens he had standing upright in that front pocket. All the more evidence that the carelessly ripped paper was just a decoy. Well, thank you for your time. If we have any more questions, we will find you. He stood holding his hand out for a shake, his partner already out of the door by the time Burt was ready to follow him. By the way, officer, call the man Scraps. Nobody calls him Coleman. Maybe that's why you can't find him yet. I pulled up to the scrapyard. I was already 20 minutes late. It was never a pleasure to be deafened by the cranes moving the old cars or the jackhammer crushing them to pieces, but today, the scrapyard was silent. Clouds of dust and red sand swirled in the air as the few workers who were called out today hustled to complete their jobs. It wasn't hard to notice them avoiding the bright strips of caution tape quarantining off the eastern side of the yard. I slammed my door shut. I still had to be on guard duty, I thought bitterly.